limits for our cameras. Maybe you've encountered this before if you've tried to record like 30 minutes or something. A lot of cameras have a recordio switcher. If you can run multicam, Zach, this is a...
You may think that you are the subject of whatever you are putting together, and you may well be in the end product, but as your camera sees any single thing, it is only gathering light. And that is a very useful perspective for which to look through your viewfinder or lens otherwise, because you can save yourself a lot of time in thinking about how it works. Now, what I would encourage anyone to do immediately is look for the camera that you have, and when I say that, I want to say it with a caveat, which is that it shouldn't probably be the like point-and-shoot camera that your parents have from 2006, but very likely the one that you have in your pocket, which is your cell phone, that has, if it is within the last 5 years, amazing video capabilities to some degree. And the reason that I would suggest that you do this is because most of what you see throughout the day, most of the media you consume if you're on social media, and a lot of even what you see on TV, is created with cell phones, iPhones. If you go out and see the KEYC news gathering team, very often they're shooting with an iPhone 13.
So here we go. So first step, whenever you're thinking about recording something, is figuring out what your source is. Before we ever point a microphone at it, before we ever decide what interface we're using, we need to know the source. An example of sources could be maybe you're just doing some Foley work, so maybe you're like crunching something or just maybe making some noises. You could have a singer, the source being their mouth. You could have a guitar. The source could be the sound of the guitar itself. It could be, as I have here, a 1/4-inch jack coming out of it, sending your source either to your interface or to some sort of amplifier. Have a go and look through that. I'm going to mute these guys. Yeah, so we're getting signal through right now. If I grab my gain knob, you'll be able to see that the signal will slowly climb, and I can even hear that I'm even getting into the point of getting feedback. Now, gain is not the same thing as volume. Gain, I'm actually adjusting how much voltage is going to my preamp, and that's going to basically decide like how powerful the mic is. Some people like to think of it as like almost like the mic's sensitivity. It's not literally that, but it is a good way to kind of think about it when you're first learning about gain staging. And you can even get to the point where if you have microphones, your mic can be gained so high that it'll actually start feeding back. I don't really want to demonstrate that because I don't want to ruin your guys' ears. But yeah, your goal is to, when recording, get it so you're somewhere around negative like 18 to negative 10, depending on what the source is and how loud you're going to want to turn it up in the future. I would say the absolute minimum viable for a recording that you're actually going to post, I would say is going to be somewhere around that negative 18. If you can get negative 10 with high fidelity, and that's awesome. And this is, we're talking about the average. If on a really loud signal, you go a little bit above that, or if you happen to not, if on a really long signal you have to go a little bit above that or a little bit below, it's not a big deal as long as you're not clipping or like constantly way above negative 2.
Which is showing the 3 cameras that we currently have. And that helps me be able to like in real time pick which angle I want to see. So if I was live streaming, that would be what's getting shown, or right now I'm just cutting it for the recording, but actually later we'll be able to edit those cuts I made, so it's really helpful.
You got to keep going. Don't be afraid of the silence. You don't have to listen. What do they know? They probably won't even come to your show, and somebody's gonna come up and they're gonna need to hear your song. So think you should keep on singing all night long. Sing it all night long.
It starts to kind of meander. Just let me know, and if you want specific information, I'm more than happy to cut the storytelling and give you actual technical information. But let's see what this tape sounds like. So, hold it up for you since there's no dot cam. So again, we recorded these at some point. You can see the lights flashing. Well, where's the sound? Well, let's push up a fader. Cat sandwich. Drums. And then we, there's some ways to get tracks onto other tracks, and it's a whole thing, but so obviously this is not the most enjoyable music to be listening to, but what I'm trying to kind of get at here is we were just crazy kids writing music in my dad's shop, and in my dad's shop, it was deer heads everywhere. It was not a place for well, maybe it was a place for that kind of sounding music, because it was just full of chaos, and we didn't care. We just plugged the microphones into that thing and played. Just like we plugged the microphones into the one microphone into the computer and played. And this is still going here. So, no, wait, did I mute? Yeah. So that's the one microphone version. This is the 4-track proper mix right here that I put on my computer. So we'll fast forward. So the 4-track definitely sounds a little better, discerning ears. You put on your headphones and you can sort of say, okay, yeah, the 4-track has more clarity, there's more punch in the drums, you can sort of tell there's separation from the instruments, whereas the room microphone original recording is just sort of chaos, and I had a China boy cymbal on the drums and a bucket for the hi-hat. That was it, and just so you can hear the clank, 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 clank on the hi-hats, and then the exploding hi-hat or crash cymbal over here. What I want to kind of get across here, though, is when you're doing DIY recordings, you don't necessarily need much. All you need is a song and something that records, okay? Because that's kind of what I asked when we first started, was do we want to be performers? Do we want to be songwriters and musicians, who are just looking to capture the idea so that we can hear it back and then go perform, right? Or do we want to become producers, people who maybe get bands into the studio and then record for the bands? It's a real split. I find myself, I grew up, again, playing music and recording right at the same time, so they're sort of intertwined for me. I never didn't have the capability to record. When I was a kid, maybe you saw Home Alone 2. There was the, what was that thing, the Talk Boy, remember that in Home Alone 2?
I saw Home Alone 2.
Plays an engineer. Then you have the producer who's behind the mixing console, saying, okay, let's do another take, let's do it again, let's do it again. The producer, is the person who is basically helping you take your ideas and go, here's the song, right? Because sometimes, more often than not, it's really hard to see a song as the idea that we have with the guitar or the piano, and the cell phone recordings, all the way through to a finished recorded version ourselves. Trust me. I've won 3 arts grants over the past 3 years to finish my band's record, record it myself. And we're about 90% done, but it's been 3 years. If I had taken those arts grants and gone to a producer, this guy that Michelle and I, our old band, used to work with, if I had just paid Brett the money, I'd have the songs, right? So you kind of get to that point where you're do I want to be a recording person, or do I want to be a musician who's performing my recordings, right?
And we want to get something recorded that's good enough that we feel like we could share it with venues, we feel we could share it with other people. Maybe it's not NPR or the current quality, but something that we could be proud of, even creating and selling
Yeah.
at our shows. What should we do? We want to, like the next step from recording on my phone. What would be
Next
the
step from recording on your phone. So, thank you for the question, Michelle. And I know you had your hand, and I didn't get your name? Your name?
Chanel.
Chanel.
But my question was a little bit similar, like, say, like
Okay,
I see
good.
level 1 is like the phone,
Yeah.
basic recording, and then what's level 2?
Great. Level 2, well, so what Michelle and I have a band called Goodnight Gold Dust, which I think the stickers are on the side of that suitcase. For our second studio album, we demoed everything because we learned, and I'm trying not to like talk about the actual recording studio we went to because it was like, it's another world. But that's kind of where this question is leading me. For our first record, we made like what we thought were pretty good demos when we went to the studio. When I say demos, I mean it was like Laura, Michelle, my partner Laura, Michelle, and I recorded in our rehearsal space, which was Michelle's basement, right? And then we sent the tracks to this guy that we found in the cities, and he's like, sure, yeah, it sounds great. And we got there, oh God, I don't even know if I have those demos, but I might have them. While I search, I'll keep trying to talk here. Artists. So we brought our demos to the studio because we had gotten to the point where we were self-producing everything. And a friend of ours was like, you guys, if you want to do anything with this group, you've got to work with a real producer. You've got to go to Minneapolis. You have to work with a real producer. Here's our first our first recording. Ooh, let's play this one, Michelle. So this is our first album, which we recorded in various bathrooms and hallways and basements.
Use GarageBand.
In used GarageBand, yeah. This is in 2010. You know, I mixed it. Vocal comes in here. This is Michelle on the piano. Here's Laura. Here's Michelle's piano solo. I didn't know what I was doing. She wrote the part. We went to MSU, broke into a practice room, put a microphone in front of the piano, hit record, and that was it. I didn't think twice about how good it sounded, right? Because the performance is killer. So we recorded our own stuff for a long time, and then we kind of got to, oh my God, are they on here? No. Oh, that might be it. Holy cats. What's this? So this is okay. So this is a demo from our in prep for our first studio record, right? I think it's just a microphone in the room. Just microphone in the room. Now there's all this like ambient space. Remember how we used to do this one? Sort of floaty, really war on drugs was like living in my mind at the time. Vocal doesn't come in till like vocal there it is. Right, so there's your vocal. It's terrible. And then you go to, I guess we can stay in Apple Music. So I'm going to answer the question. Don't worry. So what am I showing? I'm showing you the demos, right? The full band demos that we made. Okay. And now we have these full band demos, and they're demos. That's not like let's release a record. You know, that's not great. Goodnight. What's our band called? So remember, keep that song in your mind there. And then we go to the studio, and it sounds like this. Same song. You record it. You need to record it, like on your cell phone. Capture it. When you feel like the song is ready, whatever you need to do, just capture it. Get it on tape, right? Cassette tape. I always call like, I'm going to tape it, you know, on my cell phone, because it's kind of fun to think of it like that. And then from there, really from there, it's up to you, you know? Do you want to sit there and open up a, you know, GarageBand session and like overdub and like put delay on things and goof around and put loops in? Do you want to do that? Do you have time for that? Then knock yourself out. Do you want people to hear that song? Then you might want to set a limit, on how long you screw around on your own with it. Do you want people to hear that song and you don't want to necessarily like fart around with all that stuff? Then you might want to talk to somebody, I think for me, DIY recording has taught me how to, one, capture my songs, right? And I showed you from the very beginning, American Filth, the hardcore band, microphone in the back of the room, and we just played live. We just played all those songs live. My friend just chopped them up in the recording program, which is probably Audacity. And then he just printed them, and we made CDs, and there they were. To the 4-track, right, which gets a little more professional. And for me, it was like, I wanted to go to school for recording, but it was this whole thing, and I wasn't able to get into the program. You get a little more pro sounding with the gear, but then you hit a certain, and then you get, this is the Apollo twin, right? So this is like $1 zillion, and it doesn't make the recordings necessarily sound any better. It doesn't make your song any better. It's just a bunch more money you dumped into it. There is something to be said for buying quality gear, right? But you can spend, don't even ask me what my Sweetwater credit card looks like right now. I don't want to talk about it. Thousands of dollars, and thousands doesn't even, it just goes from there. You can spend so much money on recording gear. And you don't necessarily have to, right? Because like a lot of times somebody else already has, and so, God, what are we even talking about?
So that,
Yeah, help me out here, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of what I could do on my own at home.
What you can do on your own at home, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here for our 2 o'clock workshop. Our final workshop here at the high school. This weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have 2 more days of workshops at the Triple Falls stage in Minnesota Square Park. I've got schedules posted on the whiteboard at the main entrance, and you can also check everything out on our website, Minnesota Original Music Festival.org. Lots of stuff going on this week, and we hope to see you there. All right. So this is Music for Video Games with Andrew.
Lures,
Luers.
like fishing lures.
Thank you. Andrew is a composer, producer, and multi-instrumentalist from Shakopee. Please welcome Andrew Luers.
As I was saying before, I'm really glad that I think pretty much all of you were here at Colin's because there's a lot of crossover, and I think that there's so think about here where he's giving the great the introduction, and then there's all these different places you can branch out, right? And part of these really is writing for video games, and so my composition I guess day to day for writing for video games is mostly with independent games. And there's a lot of, it's sort of there's all kinds of different levels, right? You can but anyone can get into it, and part of that is what I'll talk about is a lot of the networking of where do you get started, right? Because there's all these different opportunities, both for people that write music and people that play instruments and or vocalists or anything, and there's tons of options, right? It just branches out, and so it's this whole I guess like a cottage industry, right? Of being able to figure out what skills you have, how you can work them into writing for media, basically, And so, similar to making a movie soundtrack or something, games, there's always different types of genres that you can do that will fit with the game, and there's kind of different things that you can do. And so, this is my clickbait thing that I wrote 2 minutes ago. But basically, I'm going to take that one. So there's two kind of things that I'll touch on. Thank you, Colin, for starting it off, because all the points he made, I can just reference right away. Where exactly, it's get some sort of way to record your ideas down. And if you're working with a studio that will have some sort of budget, they will help. It's a great chance for you to be able to get your ideas out there, get paid for them in some capacity, and then have someone foot the bill while you're kind of learning the ropes a little bit. And if you can get if you find someone that you're creatively working with well, it works out pretty good. Sometimes that's the hard part of finding it, and I'll talk about that of getting started and stuff. the last thing about, like, when you're working with a songwriter, when you do have a budget and you can hire musicians to help you out, oftentimes it will be remote. And like, so generally, like, at this point now in my career, anyone that I work with is like part of my network, right? And I hate, like, I was talking with Jenny earlier, I hate the idea of like network. Like, I'm very me, like, I just want to like sit down and do my thing. But networking eventually is just like making friends, and you just like have like people that you get along with great, and you work with the same people. And you'll see if you look at the stems here that I've received from my musicians, it's like maybe not in this one, but okay, yeah, like Michaela, John S, John R, Laura. Like, I don't say flute, I say Laura, just because like that's like Laura's my flute gal. And so what they'll do is I will, and then actually this explains it pretty good. So I have like flute export, and I think maybe I don't have it anymore, but initially when I'm writing out the music, so this first top, all the green stuff is anything that's MIDI data that, you know, if you click into it, it'll be either this piano roll or it'll be a score view, so like depending on what you're comfortable with. And what I'll do is I'll put together my flute part, and then what I'll do here is here's my flute part in this type of view. But if I look at the score view and select just that, this is the flute music. And so what I can do is I will send that to Laura, and then, you know, say, hey, you know, I need this within the next 3 weeks. Does it work with your schedule, right? And she and a lot of musicians will have DIY setups, and they, like, what they'll do is they'll record stuff, and they'll send it out. And either it's, you know, their side hustle or it's their main gig. You know, it doesn't matter, but like, find someone that you like enjoy working with, and I can also help like talk about like finding musicians, because that can be tricky, especially. I guess a really good example is that I used to work with a phenomenal like double reed player, so like English horn, oboe, and she's the primary English horn player for the Orlando Symphony Orchestra, and she's just too busy now. Like, she has outgrown me, right? And so it's like sometimes that happens, and so I can't necessarily work with her anymore, which is sad because she was amazing and super fun. But so I have to find, and so next time I have like an English horn part or an oboe, I have to find someone else, unless I, you know, get lucky and she has some time. And so what they'll do is they'll send clean recordings, usually, and sometimes not, you have to clean it up, and we'll talk about that maybe, but generally if you're working with someone who has like the right setup, it'll be pretty good. And I'll just kind of solo like these, and I'm running a bunch of extra stuff on my so basically I'll try to actually just dry it all out.
Without like getting ripped off, or how do you determine like
Great question.
what
Thank you for bringing that up. So, and I want to bring that up too, because there is a lot of different ways to get paid, and it depends on, and there's more ways to get paid as a composer than as a performer. And generally, that doesn't mean there's not opportunities, but generally there's a agreed upon like payment system for so I'll start with performers. So performers, generally when I'm working with someone, either they will have a specific fee per, either they'll have an hourly fee, and or they'll have a certain a fee per minute of music they provide. And so if I need a violin part and it's gonna be 3 minutes long, like generally I pay Michaela $150 per minute of recording that she sends, and it could be a minute of one note. But that's the rate, right? If it's something really complex, like, and it's going to take your time to wood shop it and like to get it up to, like, if it's going to be a bunch of runs and stuff, then it'll be hourly. Like, it just makes sense for her as like her business, and that like and composers understand and respect that. So it's like, if I'm going to have some crazy, just super complex technical writing, it's going to be, she's going to charge for some of the rehearsal for that. So generally, and I think I had to do that once, but basically, so like that's like a good like starting fee. And if you're getting started, maybe you bring it down a little bit to just try to get some, like to build a portfolio, but you don't want to sell yourself short. And then as a composer, there's pretty much infinite configurations of how to get paid. And it's like, there's two pieces to it, and one is a similar, like a flat fee per minute of music delivered. And then there's the idea of back end, which is like, if however many copies of the game sells, you get a percentage of that. And so that can go either way, like, because if you go for a back-end deal but the game doesn't sell, because it's always a crapshoot, and it's like, it's often out of your control, you might have done a bunch of work for no actual money, right? And so oftentimes what they'll do is there'll be you can negotiate, right? And that's like the worst part, and I hate it, but like, I just try to like hold my nose. And it's like, here's a smaller flat fee and a smaller percentage, right? So you're kind of hedging. And then there's also if you're a composer, there's the discussion of rights, because the rights to the music belongs to the composer unless otherwise stated. So hypothetical, there'll be a contract, right? When you're signing a thing, there'll be a contract to make sure that both parties get what they're like looking for, basically to protect both people, right? And generally, the ones that I've worked with have been very straightforward, boilerplate, like non-complex. It's not going to be a phone book that they make you read, and you have to like sort through this legal thing. It's usually going to be pretty straightforward, especially if you're working with indie studios, which I think is like the most likely opportunity. And then generally, so like hypothetically, like you could have a deal where you talk with someone, and like one configuration is you'll get $200 per minute of music composed, and then like 100% of the soundtrack residuals. So like any profit from the soundtrack would go to you, and then like 2% of like game sales after a certain point. And so they would want to make sure that they like made their investment back, and then after they made that back, then you would be getting 2% of every game sold. So like that's like not uncommon, but that's like one way of making. Or it could just be, you know, they want an hour of music, and they'll pay like $10,000 for that. But it has to be like X number of things, and like they'll and then like usually you would work with a creative director who will have either like a list of the types of songs that they need, or sometimes it's just like it really depends. It's so varied. It's like going to like a buffet, right? There's gonna be 1,000 things at the buffet, and what ends up on your plate isn't always your choice. But as you get more experience, you can kind of decide, like, yeah, I don't really want to have fish, right? I just want to have like my salad, and I want to have some fruit, and that's all I want. And you can't always, like, early on, you can't always be choosy, unless you're just like, nah, I'm good. Like